Hey guys, welcome back to Falcon Central Radio, part of the Pro Football Central Radio Network. I am your host, Aaron Freeman. Today I am joined by Matt Karoly of Rise Up Reader, stepping in for Charles McDonald, who was stepping in for Scott Karasik. So, you're third string, Matt, but you're getting called up, much like many players on the Falcons defense. You're next man up, so to speak.
So now you're saying I'm worse than Matt Schaub. I mean, a couple of shows ago I was compared to Matt Schaub. Now I'm basically Kurt Benkirk, but
Yeah.
it is what it is. I'm happy to be on. Excited to talk about some Falcons here with you.
Yeah. So tonight we're going to talk about the Falcons' win over the Carolina Panthers in Week 2. We'll talk about their upcoming matchup against the New Orleans Saints in Week 3, and we'll be answering your mailbag questions. I should give a shout out to those sponsoring the show, MyBookie.AG. I will also be giving some of my picks, picking a favorite, picking an underdog for you guys to bet on this week if you happen to go to MyBookie.AG and make those bets. But as this show usually starts off, if there's any roster moves that the Falcons have made in the last week since we've done the show, we discussed those. There was one major roster move that the Falcons made earlier this week, putting left guard Andy Levitre on injured reserve with a triceps injury. They also signed Zach Karen to their roster, backup center / guard. They made some changes to their practice squad. Out goes Prince Charles Iwara. In comes Tevez Calhoun. And they also brought back Jacob Tuodi Mariner, the defensive end, to their practice squad. So obviously the big one is Levitre. Matt, what are your thoughts on how big a blow is that? Can Wes Schweitzer step up and fill that void?
I mean, I definitely think he can. I think we saw shades of it this past week against Carolina, but I mean, it's a blow. It sucks for him personally because this might be the last we see of Andy Levitre in Atlanta. He'll be 33 next year. Now this is back-to-back years facing that tricep injury. The team's not likely going to want to bring him back, and if they do, it's going to be a cheap vet min deal, which I'm not sure he'd be willing to play on anymore. I was excited to see Fusco and Levitre this year, two veterans going up against some of the more potent D lines that Falcons are going to have to get through, like Los Angeles Rams and like Carolina and Tampa Bay and some of the others, Philadelphia, obviously. But now it's not meant to be. We got Wes Schweitzer, who again showed strides, showed improvement this past week, and I think it's a big opportunity for him because the Falcons kind of are going to have a decision to make in the offseason as far as what they want to do with the future of their O-line, especially that left guard spot. And this is a 14-game audition for Wes to prove if he is the long-term answer there or not. So it's a big opportunity for him, and it's next man up approach, and it's kind of been the theme so far for the Falcons through these first 2 weeks.
Yep, absolutely. So, yeah, I mean, I think the main thing you lose with Levitre is the consistency. Like Schweitzer did flash some ability, handled himself pretty well against guys like Kawan Short and Don Terry Poe. It wasn't a perfect game by any means, but he did his job and took care of business, held his own. But Levitre, having been a starter in this league for almost a decade, just has sort of refined his skill to a level where you can pretty much consistently know what he's going to bring each and every week. Don't quite know that with Wes Schweitzer. That was one of the issues with his rookie season, or not his first year as a starter last year at that right guard position, just a little too much up and down. And hopefully, he'll be able to sort of smooth that out and be more of the consistent player. But, there's a lot of reason to be optimistic that Schweitzer will be able to hold his own and potentially solidify that spot as the maybe long-term left guard for the Falcons this year and beyond. Do you have any thoughts on the practice squad before we move on to the Panthers game?
It was nice to see, I guess, Jacob Tuiata Mariner make his way back. I was kind of surprised to see him let go in the first place. It was a guy that they, gave a $10,000 bonus to, which was one of the highest, I think the second highest guaranteed money that they gave to any of the undrafted free agents. So they obviously valued the guy and someone that they can develop as maybe a Derek Shelby replacement in 2019. So as far as those moves go, that's probably my biggest takeaway there. Is glad that he's back.
Okay. I have no thoughts. So let's move on to the Panthers game. The Falcons win it 31-24. A lot of positives, a lot more positives in week 2 than we saw in week 1, particularly on the offense. We saw a nice rebound game for Steve Sarkisian, Matt Ryan. Tevin Coleman had a really strong game. Ito Smith had a really strong game. The offensive line sort of redeemed itself. We also saw Grady Jarrett stand out. I thought the secondary played really well. Were there any of those standouts that you wanted to comment on, Matt, or were there some other players that stood out to you in your eyes?
I mean, I think my biggest standout was Ito Smith filling in a big way. I mean, 9 carries, 46 yards, a 55% success rate. I mean, showed the type of skill and ability that we had hoped for. Falcons drafted this guy in the 4th round when, running back, you could argue, wasn't a huge need given the fact that we have Tevin Coleman and Devontae Freeman on the roster. But the guy showed some things, and he showed that he could potentially be that partner in crime for whoever the Falcons decide to make their RB1 in 2019, whether it's Devontae Freeman, which is the more likely outcome, or injuries get in the way and that doesn't become a possibility, and then they do bring back Tevin Coleman. But yeah, for me, Ito Smith showed a lot. So he was my biggest standout, or surprise, I guess, on the offensive side of the ball. On defense, I would go with Brian Poole. I mean, you mentioned the secondary play was outstanding again. Brian Poole for me is just so reliable in that open field as far as tackling goes, and we saw he got another sack coming off that corner blitz, the zone blitz where they dropped Beasley in the coverage on the opposite side. So I was really impressed with his play. Kind of solidifying the slot corner and some of the deeper parts of the field. Last Sunday. Did we freeze? Damn it. Oh boy. Sorry guys. Aaron's internet just fizzled out. So hopefully he'll be back with us shortly. Um, So about this Jets-Browns game, it's quite the thriller, huh? I guess that's what we should expect out of those two teams.